Hello, this is Madeline and Paige again for Paige's 4th day of training. So we wanted to start to kick up Paige's basic obedience training into higher gear. We wanted to start to apply some of these things in higher distractions and environments. So we took her to the park to try and work with some higher distractions and, such as dogs, our Malinois was chasing after a ball and doing some of his own training as well. So we were using him in the background to try and test her leash walking skills. As you can see right here, jumping is kind of still an issue with her on the leash. Really is our biggest issue because she gets so excited with the high pace walking. We need to use a little bit of that leash right there to kind of get her back in a nice heel position. You can see that I'm using a nice treat lure to kind of get her to where I want her to go, and I'm leading her to make those nice little turns with me so she can start to learn some nice high obedience heel work, and which is a very good tool for her, especially because she's a very high drive excited puppy. You can see I'm kind of getting her to sit in different spots, making sure that eye contact like that is very, very receptive. I want to make sure that Paige, even though there are lots of running triggers, lots of noises, lots of cars in the background like you see there, she can still work under high stress and very overwhelming environments. As you can see, I am working with some good off-leash recall. Here my mouse Sarge is going after a ball and I wanted to test her recall, and right there she responded awesome. We are really only using that leash as a backup reinforcement tool. I want to use my hands or verbal cues rather than using that leash as our first tool. I used my leg right there to try and put her back into a sit, and it worked, so that could be a very good tool to help her have a good reinforcement without having to use any extra tools such as the leash or even you talking to her. We're going to be using the long lead here in a second and showing some good tools and tips on the basic obedience we did with her out in a big open field in this park, and showing her off-leash obedience at a very longer line rather than the shorter leash to show that she has been working on that off-leash recall and doing very beautifully when it comes to just her simple basic obedience, her being okay out in very high overwhelming environments, and showing that she is getting very independent and confident as well. She is kind of observing her surroundings here, and you can tell she's still giving me awesome eye contact. I'm just rewarding her as she goes on. There's lots of triggers, like my Mal is consistently playing ball in the background, and she is keeping that eye contact beautifully. Here we start to work on the long line, and I'm just having her kind of explore her surroundings. She did a lot of high drive obedience here, as you saw previously with that leash walking, so I wanted to let her kind of de-escalate a little bit from that situation. So I gave her a little bit of a break, a little time out. I wanted to really focus on giving her some distance, but also working and calling her back to me and putting her in a sit just like that. I want to put her in situations where she can still respond even when there are dogs like Sarge off leash and playing around in spaces. Here I'm about to show the difference between the tool effectiveness of a harness as well as the slip lead, which is the preferred method for her training. Since Paige is a little more on the confident side with her training now, she definitely needs some extra reinforcement tools for those moments when she might get a little overwhelmed or a little overstimulated and she may not respond to your first cue or even the easy cues. It's very easy for a dog to get over threshold, and so for moments like that, if you know there are triggers or if you know their responses may not as quick or as consistent, then you need to just lessen their distance. So right here I knew it was still a very beginner thing for her, so I wanted to put my foot on that leash right there. You saw she got up, but that was enough to reinforce the sit by feeling that leash pressure. As you can see, I wanted to try and use the treats as an extra tool, but that also did not work, and I did not receive eye contact. We're not really pushing for it to be perfect right now, so she is about at a level 2, so she'll be able to sit and stay at a very receptive command, but the eye contact will not be there. I really want to push for the eye contact because if she is feeling very overwhelmed or very excited, the eye contact is the only way to know that she is truly de-escalated away from that trigger, and she's not going to try and hyper fixate on what that is for a nice, calm, neutral dog. Paige is following me around really good. After the moment that she had that hiccup right there and didn't want to look at me, then I wanted to try and switch the tool from the harness to the slip lead. Right there, we ran that trigger again, and we got the response that we were looking for. She was able to follow through that time with the help of the slip leash, which is also, as I'm saying, a very good consistent follow through, and that helped her to remain the eye contact. After a couple seconds, we were able to follow through, and that time it worked beautifully. As you can see, her basic obedience, including the leash walking, the jumping, her mouthiness, of course, as well as just her overall excitement level, has definitely greatly improved. And we believe that Paige deserved a long, rewarded break, and she deserved a nice long nap after that and got lots of treats.